There is a project that we have, and I can say is not as technical as the other ones you've been hearing about. But the whole question here is, can people choose what they want to share and what they don't want to share? And if they could choose, as they did for us, what would they redact from their records? And also, do different groups of people remove different things? And so that's another thing that we learned early on, that different um, segments of the population participate more in research or less, and in data sharing is very similar. So people-centered strategies here, what's happening and showing here is what we do these days, right? Where they're a medical center, someone comes, requests data, you think about it, and then you say, yes, it's a good use, and then you can do it. So it's all in the hands of the healthcare institutions. What we wanted to say is, what if people were choosing in real thing, not hypothetical, let's say for the duration of the study, whatever you put as your data sharing preferences, the hospital will honor. So that's what we did at UCSD. And here's just an old interface, but the idea is the following. There are certain categories of data, and there are certain categories of recipients of data. So if it's a UCSD research or the local VA is one column, the other column is um, not-for-profit organizations, and the other one is for-profit organizations. And then the patient can go there and pick, and then we would do data sharing exactly like they did. We used categories that were shown in the literature to be more sensitive, as well as some very common things to share, like was told here before: age, ethnicity, gender, race. And also the ones, social history and tissue and blood sample usage, we wanted to put there because the All of Us program was coming, and we wanted to know who will be even considering sharing all of that. So we did this system called iConcur, and it sits in the clinical data warehouse as a filter. So the patient decides what they want to share, and on top of the clinical data warehouse, we then share exactly what they wanted. So I'll go directly to the results here. And what you see on the right-hand side, the light blue, is people who just said, yeah, continue what you're doing. It's great, at 50% of people, and then buy item. On the other extreme, you have the red bars that say, don't share anything with anybody. I don't want. And in the intermediate ones, you see the ones who are okay to share with UCSD or with the nonprofit, but are not like the light blue that share with everyone, right? So in principle, for our recruitment center of All of Us program, we knew we were removing already half of the people there, because the light blue ones are the ones who would share with any of the recipients. We repeated this with a larger sample in another institution, so a two-institution study, and the results were essentially the same. As you see, we just changed the color here. The dark green are what were the light blues from before, and the yellow or orange are the ones who wouldn't share with anybody. But the patterns remain the same, and the items that people decide not to share are very similar, except we had more items in here. One of the top ones not to share was income, believe it or not. The other ones was past pregnancy and mental illness in the family. So items that we know are sensitive. But what happens here is that people then were more willing to share. They say, well, if I know who is getting the data for what purposes and so on, I would be more willing to share. So we are following up on this study with another one now, in which we do multi-institutional, so people have records in different institutions. You might want to release them differently. We also want the full immutable ledger of who asked for data and who got the data, and therefore was our opportunity to use blockchain technology, which we were very curious about. So we are learning something about that. And we are doing multi-institutional. So the institutions are shown here that decided to participate in this project, which is, we called I agree, but I don't have a good spelling out of that. So it's just I agree. But it's less elitist than I concur. So it's a follow-up of that. So again, we are developing this immutable blockchain. And there are three players, right? The patients, the researchers, and the institutional representatives who are authorizing still or are compiling the use of the data. The reason why sharing is very important. If it's for cancer research, some people are more willing to do than if it's for, some other purpose, the insurance company trying to determine your premium, for example. There will be fewer people interested in that. So lastly, I'll go quickly say that we are also working with the Strong Heart Study, which is the largest cohort of American Indian participants in the United States. And we learned a lot that group preferences do supersede individuals' preferences in this scenario. So we need to learn how to approach the problem culturally, sensitively, and so on. So we had a workshop with tribal leaders to help determine approaches to solicit preferences. And we learned quite a bit. I won't go over every item, but they alerted us on who should be consulted about developing this data preference system. Some are shown here. They also instructed us on when and where to approach individuals about this eliciting those preferences and how. So several items, you can read the paper, so I'm not going to belabor that. But also some expectations here. If you are working with American Indians, please, this is something we learned with the specific groups that we were working with, but take that into consideration because it might not be immediate that you're thinking about eye contact or verbal praise or provision of food, which is disallowed by NIH grants, unfortunately. So we have to get from other sources, but it's an important item. And it's very important now. So we learned that people bring their families, bring their friends. They have to be all welcome to such activities. And then spend time in the community, which some of my colleagues have done, because you earn respect by respecting people, and it takes time. So I think that's what I wanted to say. Please remember protecting the privacy of individuals and groups is critical. Helping researchers find data is also critical. So is this data sharing versus privacy a kind of balance that we need to reach. Transparency in the use of data is also critical. Don't hide behind, oh, this being not used or something. Another current trend, which is try to link individuals in different databases, please understand that the more you link, the more privacy can be breached. And if people didn't consent for the linkage, you should not link. I mean, this is a very basic concept that I think for this audience, I can pass along. So the need for consent will not damage AI research. We have shown that with our I concur, I agree studies. It will actually facilitate it because there are things that we as hospital administrators and others cannot share that perhaps people do want to share. So they're the two sides of the story. The other thing, AI fairness is very popular now. So think about the two types of fairness, the data being fair and so on, but also the fairness with the groups that you're working with. And people have different thresholds that people consider sensitive, different things. And if you can respect that, I think we go both ways. So as I do my -5 minutes presentation, I will just end with that. Ask people, respect people, and think about that. Our research technically is very important, but in the end, it's how we change people's lives. And if breaches happen, we change them quite negatively. So thank you so much for the invitation.